The receptionist had already told the little girl twice that this was not a place for children. The lobby was all glass and steel and quiet air conditioning, the kind of quiet that made shoes squeak louder. The little girl's shoes were scuffed pink sneakers with frayed laces. She set her jaw, hugged a worn canvas tote to her chest, and kept her eyes on the elevator doors as if they were going to open for her courage alone. "My mom's sick, so I came instead," she said for the third time, like a line she'd practiced. "Please. Her interview is at 10. Behind the front desk, the receptionist glanced at the schedule on her screen. "Ms. Alvarez, 10 o'clock, floor 41, she read softly, then looked back at the girl. "Sweetheart, job interviews are for the applicants." "I know," the girl said, standing on tiptoe to slide a folded paper under the glass. "But we need this job. And my mom says we do not reschedule opportunity." The receptionist stared at the paper. It was a bus transfer with a pencil sketch of a house and two stick figures, one tall with a bun, one tiny with a messy halo of curls. Underneath was written, "Lila and Mom, team." The handwriting tilted uphill, as if it were climbing out of something. "What's your name?" the receptionist asked. "Lila," she said. "I'm 9, I can wait quietly." She lifted the tote, its once white letters now gray, "Books for Better." The strap had been resewn with blue thread. "I brought proof. Proof that my mom is the best person you'll ever hire." The receptionist looked toward the corridor, where two men in tailored suits were arguing softly about market share. She looked back at Lila's face, steady, too steady for a child. "Stay right there," she said. "Let me check with upstairs." The elevator ride was longer than Lila expected. She counted numbers, then counted her breaths. "Count to 3 in, 3 out, don't cry, don't cry." Floor 41 opened to another layer of quiet, framed awards, a live wall of plants, an espresso machine that wheezed with dignity. There was a view of the city so wide it made her dizzy, like a map someone had forgotten to fold. They put her in a glass-walled conference room that looked like a fish tank. Everything in the room was expensive in the way of things that don't show fingerprints. Lila left fingerprints anyway, small crescents on the edge of the chair as she slid into it. She placed the tote on the table and kept her hands on top. She could feel the paper inside, letters, drawings, receipts. The proof. When the door opened, she expected a lady with a clipboard. Instead, a tall man walked in, a man whose suit looked like the inside of a brand new car, sleek, faintly dangerous. He had the face people wear on magazine covers when they talk about building things out of nothing. He put his phone face down on the table and sat across from her. "I'm Carter Hale," he said. "I'm the CEO." She had heard the name on the bus ads, Hale and Hartwell Holdings, a clean font that looked like a promise. She lifted her chin. "I'm Lila Alvarez," she said, because names mattered. "Thank you for seeing me." "I'm told your mother is ill," he said, not unkindly. "I'm sorry to hear that. This position is, well, it's not a lemonade stand." Lila's hand tightened on the tote. "We had a lemonade stand once," she said. "That's part of the proof." He leaned back, surprised into a smile he tried to hide. "Is it?" She was going to come, Lila said, words rushing now. She set her alarm and ironed her blouse and wrote down the building number 3 times. But this morning she couldn't stand up without the room spinning. "We don't have a car. The bus takes 3 transfers and then you have to walk up the big hill, and she almost fainted last week on our stairs." It's not nothing. But she said opportunity doesn't reschedule, and I know she meant me too. So I came." Mr. Hale looked at her then, properly looked. The room did that thing the city does from up high, the edges blur, the center sharpens. He tapped his phone screen but didn't pick it up. "What proof did you bring, Lila?" She opened the tote with careful fingers and began to build a small city on the table. A photo of her mom in a diner waitress uniform, hair pinned back, writing orders with a smile that looked like it hurt and did it anyway. A ledger notebook, neat columns in blue pen, tips counted to the penny, tiny notes like, "Customer in booth 3 sad, extra cherry, mixed with, ask for morning shift next week." A yellowed certificate from community college, accounting I, A, accounting 2, A. 3 neatly folded letters, one from a landlord with, "always on time when possible," underlined twice, one from the school librarian praising a book drive, one from a neighbor who wrote about a woman who watered plants that weren't hers. "And this," Lila said, last of all, pulling out a wrinkled flyer, "Alvarez lemonade and cookies, Saturday only." On the back were numbers. Many, Many numbers. We did it every summer until last year. This is our profit and loss. Mr. Hale's fingers moved of their own accord to the paper. The numbers were not childish. The costs were itemized: lemons, sugar, cups, flour for the cookies, ribbon to make it look nice. At the bottom, in even smaller writing, half to rent, half to savings. Tips to book fund. You made $48. He asked. The first year, Lila said. The next year we made $132. The church down the block let us set up near the fair because Mom volunteered to clean after. We made a chart to see which cookies people liked with lemonade. Chocolate chip and lemonade is not the most popular. Snickerdoodle is better. Apple slice with cinnamon was the surprise. You ran a product market fit test, he said before he could stop himself. We asked people what made them stop, Lila said. If it was the sign, the ribbon, or the free sample. The ribbon won. Ribbons matter. He coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. He wasn't the laughing type, not in this building. But something had shifted. And your mother, he said, turning to the community college certificates. She studied accounting. When she could. She took 2 classes at a time until Nana got sick and she had to take extra shifts. But she still does numbers for the laundromat 2 blocks over, for free sometimes because they're nice to us. She knows numbers like I know library aisles. He thumbed through the ledger, saw the cross-out lines, the corrections, the discipline. He looked again at Lila's face, and for a second he saw a different child reflected there, a skinny boy around her age with a bowl cut and sneakers that had seen another kid's feet first. That boy had stood in a lobby once, hands in his pockets, and pretended not to care that security was watching him. The boy had learned fast that pretending was a kind of armor. Where is your mother now? He asked. At home. I left her water and crackers and I put a sticky note on the kettle. Heat, don't boil. Our neighbor Ms. Jordan said she'd check in. She's the one who gave me bus money. Lila bit her lip. I know I'm not supposed to be here. But if you send me away, I'll feel like I didn't try. He swiveled his chair a few degrees to the window, then back. Outside, a crane swung slow as a clock hand. Inside, the espresso machine wheezed again, as if to remind them that even beautiful machines had to work to breathe. He pressed his thumbs together. What job did your mother apply for, Lila? Accounts assistant, Lila said immediately. Full-time. With benefits. How do you know what benefits are? My mom shows me the good words and the dangerous words, she said. Benefits are good. At will is a word you have to hold carefully. So is exempt. We read everything twice, 3 times, if there are boxes to check. Somewhere in Mr. Hale's chest a thread pulled taut. He had not become a millionaire by softness. He had become one by outrunning other people's hunger, and sometimes ignoring the shadow of his own. But hunger had a particular grammar. It recognized its own from 50 floors up. He picked up the phone, dialed an extension. Ria, he said when his HR director answered. I want to reschedule Ms. Alvarez's interview to this afternoon. Tell her daughter to go home and bring her. If she's not well enough, I'll go with them to a clinic. I'll cover it personally. And Ria, get me their address. There was a pause at the other end that said very clearly, CEOs do not escort candidates to clinics. He said quietly, do it. He set the phone down. Lila's eyes were shiny. Are we in trouble? She whispered. No, he said. You did what some of the best people I know forget to do. You showed up. He walked her down himself. In the elevator, a woman in a cobalt dress glanced between them, puzzled, perhaps a little charmed. Lila clutched the tote like it was a lifeboat and watched the numbers glide backward to earth. In the lobby, the receptionist's eyebrows climbed all the way up when she saw who was by Lila's side. Thank you, Lila said to him, small voice, big gratitude. I'll run. I can do it faster than the bus if I cut through the park. You'll take a car, he said. The company car. He gestured to a driver, who materialized with the respectful speed of people who anticipate weather. We'll pick up your mother. And, Lila, yes, if you ever decide to start another lemonade stand, talk to me about margins. He tried on a smile. It fit awkwardly but true. I might invest. The car smelled like clean leather. The driver turned off the fancy radio and asked Lila to point the way. Their neighborhood was one of those maps that never made it onto the tourist brochures, where storefront windows had metal grids like tired eyelids and kids made obstacle courses out of potholes. On the 3rd floor of a building that needed paint, a paper heart was taped to a window. We live here. Her mother opened the door with one hand on the frame. She looked pale as chalk, hair in a loose twist that had given up. But her eyes were the first thing you noticed. They were wary and warm at the same time, like a stove that's been turned off but still keeps the kitchen safe. "Lila," she said, then spotted the man behind her and straightened a fraction. "Sir, can I help you, Ms. Alvarez?" Mr. Hale said, careful. "I'm Carter Hale. I came to ask you to come in for your interview this afternoon. And to see if you needed a doctor." Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at Lila. Lila lifted her chin. "I told him," she said simply. "About benefits." "In the lemonade stand." Ms. Alvarez swallowed, a ripple of grief and pride. "I'm so embarrassed," she said. "I would never. No one from a place like that should have to." "No," he interrupted gently. "No apologies. You've been carrying a piano up the stairs for a long time. Let me help. The clinic was 2 bus rides away if you didn't have a car, 5 minutes away if you did." A nurse took vitals, tut-tutted with the soothing authority of people who have seen too much and still choose to be kind. Vertigo, dehydration, exhaustion. A prescription and stern instructions about rest. "I have an interview," Ms. Alvarez said, clutching her purse like a promise. "I can rest after. You can sit during," the nurse said. "You can ask to reschedule. Jobs that don't understand bodies aren't jobs, they're traps." "She can sit during," Mr. Hale said, and meant it. Back at the tower, they put her in the same fish tank and offered water with a slice of lemon as if the universe had a sense of humor. HR went through the motions of an interview, experience, skills, availability, but the truth was that most of the answers were already on the table in the ledger in blue pen. Numbers told the truth when people couldn't afford to. While HR asked questions, Mr. Hale excused himself and stood outside the glass. He could see Lila's reflection watching her mother, elbows on the chair, tiny chin on tiny hands. Through the glass, their silhouettes looked like punctuation marks at the end of a long sentence. He realized, with a bolt of something he didn't like naming, that the feeling in his chest was not pity. It was recognition. It was a memory of his own mother sewing a missing button at 2 in the morning for a shift that paid nothing to sew buttons. It was knowing what it was to try to look like a person who had slept. The offer came that afternoon with a salary he quietly bumped up and benefits he quietly had expanded. Probationary period, Auer said. Standard, shorter than standard, he said. And the first probation is for us. She'll tell us if we deserve her time. Ms. Alvarez tried to stand to shake his hand and swayed a little. He stepped forward and steadied her. For a second they were simply 2 people who understood gravity. "You don't have to thank me," he said, when she began the first syllable of gratitude. "Just do the work like you already have been. And take tomorrow off. Start Monday." She nodded, eyes shining. "I won't let you down." "I know," he said. "That's the problem and the strength with people like you." Lila exhaled a breath she'd been holding since the bus stop that morning and leaned back so hard her chair squeaked. "So my mom works for you now?" she asked, grasping for the current of the new reality. "She will," he said. "And when she does the budget for the snack program at your school in 3 months, she'll do it so well that everyone else's numbers will sit up straighter." "How did you know about the snack program?" Ms. Alvarez whispered. He shrugged one shoulder. "I didn't. It sounded like the kind of thing you'd make better." The story could have ended there, neat as a ribbon. But life prefers knots. 2 weeks into the job, the company's numbers hiccuped. A supplier defaulted, a contract fell through, the stock market did what it sometimes does to remind people who think they're in charge that they are not. The board meetings got sharper at the edges, executives pulled double shots of espresso, and the emails came at midnight with subject lines that started to sound like pleas. On a Friday when the rain made the city look like a smudged painting, Ms. Alvarez stayed late. She had been given a series of accounts to reconcile, nothing glamorous, everything essential. She had a way of finding leaks, slow drips where coins went to sleep. She found one in a department that didn't want to be found, a duplication of service charges that had been automated and therefore unquestioned. She put the numbers in a memo and left it on her supervisor's desk with the same neatness she'd used in her blue ledger at home. On Monday the memo hopped desks all day until it landed in Mr. Hale's hands. He read it twice, then a third time, the way Lila had said she read the dangerous words. Either they had been bleeding money quietly for months, or Ms. Alvarez was a magician. He sent a single-line email, "Come up." She walked into his office with a cardigan draped over her shoulders like a cape someone had forgotten to hem. She did not sit until he pointed at the chair. You found this in your second week, he said, tapping the memo. How? She looked at her hands, then back at him. I don't know how to explain without sounding simple. I don't go by the column. I think about the people. I ask what the money was supposed to do. Then I ask if it looks like it did that thing. If it didn't, I look for where it fell asleep. He felt something like awe, the kind that makes you want to laugh and apologize to the universe for underestimating it. You could run a division. She shook her head, gentle. One rent at a time, she said. One leak at a time. He couldn't help himself. Will you help me fix this? Of course, she said. Opportunity doesn't reschedule. He laughed then, real laughter that startled even him. Your daughter is a good teacher. That same week, his company hosted a career day for a group of 5th graders from 3 schools. It had been scheduled before the panic weeks, and someone suggested canceling because optics mattered and kids plus panic looked like bad optics. He didn't cancel. He put out juice boxes in the glass fish tank and wrote his name on a whiteboard like he was a substitute teacher. When the children filed in, one of them ran ahead. Lila wore a jean jacket with a flower embroidered on the back, hair in 2 big puffs that defied gravity. She stopped just short of colliding with him. Hi, Mr. Hale, she said, breathless with the thrill of being where she had once been almost told to leave. Did you know you can see our building from your window? I did, he said. But I didn't know what it meant until recently. He told them about businesses in words that did not make their eyes glaze over. He told them that money was a story you could make tell the truth. He told them about the ribbon that mattered more than the sign sometimes. He did not tell them that success is often a quieter word than it looks like on billboards. But maybe they heard it anyway. At the end, he asked for questions, braced for the one about how much he made. Instead, a boy with 2 front teeth missing asked, Did you ever miss your mom at work? He looked at Lila and felt his ribs shift. Every day, when I was your age, he said, surprising himself. But later I tried to build a place where other people wouldn't have to miss theirs as much. How? The boy demanded, suspicious of layered answers. By hiring people like Ms. Alvarez, he said, and asking kids what they think about cookies and lemonade. After the kids left, after the emails, after a week of fixing the leak and the calm that followed, he stood at his window and thought about the scoreboard he'd been using his whole life. It had numbers, sure, and he'd been good at chasing them. But it had other metrics he'd ignored, like how many times he'd taken a cab to a clinic for someone who needed it, or how many memos with clean math had saved 100 jobs. He took out his phone and scrolled to a text he kept meaning to send to a number he had avoided for years. His mother's number. He typed, Do you still make arroz con pollo on Sundays? Then deleted it, then typed, Can I come by this weekend? He didn't hit send. Not yet. Some opportunities do reschedule, but only if you ask. In the months that followed, Ms. Alvarez became the person people came to when numbers acted like riddles. She didn't get louder, the room got quieter to hear her. She found a way to automate a tedious report that had stolen hours from 3 junior analysts for 2 years. She standardized a filing system that made an auditor blink in delighted disbelief. She kept bringing in little things from home, a plant that refused to die, a bowl of lemons that made the office smell like summer, a small framed photo of a 9-year-old girl with a tote bag that said books for better. Lila came by after school sometimes, to do homework in the break room with her sneakers swinging 3 inches above the floor. She became a kind of mascot nobody called a mascot because she would have hated that. She started a quiet box for office supplies people borrowed and forgot to return, decorated with stars, and watched with satisfaction as the box filled and emptied and filled again. On her 10th birthday, someone in marketing made a poster with a ribbon and the words, Ribbons Matter. It was supposed to be funny. It ended up being policy. People began to ask themselves what their version of the ribbon was, the small true thing that made strangers stop and feel like this place might be for them. The day Mr. Hale finally took that car not to a board meeting but to a small apartment with a paper heart in the window, he did not announce it. He didn't bring flowers or a speech. He brought the quiet of someone who expects nothing and hopes anyway. When the door opened, his mother stood there with that same stove-warm look Ms. Alvarez had given him that day. He cried before he could say hello. It was not the dignified crying of magazine covers. It was messy, and he was grateful. Later that week, during a quarterly town hall, he told the story of the leak in the memo and the lesson he'd learned. He did not mention the clinic or the bus money or the way a 9-year-old had taught him a thing he'd forgotten. Those belonged to a different ledger. He ended with, when we hire, we aren't just adding a line to payroll. We're adding a person's whole story. If we're not ready to honor that, we're not ready to grow. Afterward, in the hum that follows speeches, he found himself back in the glass fish tank with the view and the espresso machine that sighed like a person. Ms. Alvarez stood beside him, sipping tea. Lila leaned against the window, leaving a new set of fingerprints at the edge where the city began. Do you think, Lila asked, we could do the lemonade stand again this summer? But bigger, he pretended to consider it gravely. How much bigger? Like 2 ribbons bigger, she said, eyes dancing. 2 ribbons is practically a merger, he said, and she laughed, and the sound got under his ribs and lived there. When summer came, the building lobby smelled faintly of lemons on a Saturday morning. They set up a table with a white cloth and a sign in that clean font the company used, and below it Lila's hand lettering that made people smile because it was imperfect on purpose. Executives and receptionists and people in between took turns pouring lemonade and collecting suggested donations for the library book fund at Lila's school. A photo made its way onto the internet, a little girl with pink sneakers standing on a stool, handing a cup to a man in a suit who had taken off his jacket and looked human. People online argued, because that is what people online do. Some said it was a stunt. Some said it was sweet. The photo did not know which it was. It only knew that the cup of lemonade was cold and the ribbon fluttered in the air conditioning and the man in the suit had eyes that looked like the city at night when you can finally see your own window from far away. There were easier stories to tell about that day: profits donated, matching funds, community engagement. There was a harder story too, the one that dried you out and filled you back up. It was about a girl who went where she wasn't supposed to, because the rules were built for people who'd already arrived. It was about a mother who sent her child toward an elevator because that was the only way up they'd found. It was about a man who realized the tower he had built could be a lighthouse if he turned on one more light. Years later, when people asked how it had started, that program, that culture, that shift, you could line up the memos and policies and graphs that showed morale climbing like ivy. But if you wanted the truth, you could hold up a wrinkled flyer and a blue ink ledger and a canvas tote with a broken strap. You could say, it started when someone came instead, because she was 9 and brave and her mother was sick and opportunity didn't reschedule. And a door opened because sometimes it does, when a person on the other side remembers the lobby from the other side of their own life. And if, on certain afternoons, a man in a suit could be seen buying a second cup of lemonade he didn't need, talking solemnly about margins with a girl who was growing taller, if he laughed too loud or clapped when she explained her ribbon experiment for the 10th time, well, that was just a line item in a ledger that didn't use dollars. That ledger measured other wealth: steady hands, clear eyes, rooms that make space, a new job that pays on time, a mother who sleeps 8 hours, a daughter who does homework without having to translate the grown-up world into something she can carry. On the day Lila turned 12, a small envelope arrived at their apartment with the same clean font on the outside and messy handwriting on the inside. The card said, "For your next experiment," and there was a ribbon inside, and a gift card to the bookstore, and a line drawn under a single word: forward. They taped the ribbon to the kitchen wall, a little crooked. They left it crooked on purpose. It reminded them that perfection had never opened the door. Courage had, and when the world asked them to show proof, they had a way of smiling now, not brash, not apologizing, just certain. They would lift the tote and pour out their lives and say, "Here," and then they would build a future out of the small true things people had tried to overlook.